Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates and notifications. Hello everyone, welcome to Slooth Crime Stories. Today I'm here to investigate. The story takes place in North Carolina. It is located in the southeastern part of the United States, bordering the Atlantic Ocean. Charlotte is the largest city in the state, and the Charlotte metropolitan area is the largest urban area in North Carolina. It is also a major banking center in the United States, second only to New York, with billions of dollars flowing through it daily. If you are a visitor, the company in question is a cash-related business established in 1997. It was formed through the merger of two security companies and primarily provides secure transportation services, ATM services, cash processing, and customer security services to banks and retail businesses. In its first year of operation after the merger, the company faced the second largest cash heist in US history, known as the Loomis Fargo Heist. On October 5th, 1997, a Sunday, Tammy woke up feeling very worried. Her husband David was supposed to finish work last night, but he hadn't returned home after a whole night. This was an unprecedented situation for him, and they couldn't reach him no matter what they tried. Worried about her husband, Tammy decided to report the situation to the police. Upon receiving their report, the local police department soon received another distress call from the Charlotte office of Loomis Fargo, the company where David worked. Recognizing a potential connection between the two cases, the police immediately dispatched officers to the Charlotte office of Loomis Fargo. A company employee informed the police that when they arrived at the office that morning, they found the wire mesh gate outside the warehouse wide open. Initially assuming that someone had arrived early, they became suspicious when they discovered that the office was completely empty. As the employee attempted to enter the vault for inspection, they realized that the key to the vault door was missing. The vault remained inaccessible. After conducting a thorough search of the premises, they also discovered that one of the company's armored vans was missing. Realizing the gravity of the situation, the employee promptly contacted the authorities. The police examined various entry points, but found no signs of forced entry. Consequently, they inquired about the staffing situation from the previous day. According to the records, the person on duty after the shift change was none other than the missing David. Furthermore, among the company's employees on that day, David was the only one whose whereabouts were unknown. A recently hired intern and David were the last ones to leave the office the day before. The intern stayed behind for training and witnessed David closing the vault door. They both exited the company and drove away in their respective vehicles. A search conducted by the police led them to David's red pickup truck, parked outside the warehouse. Although the vehicle seemed normal, they discovered David's wedding ring on the driver's seat. Tammy, David's wife, noted that he always wore the ring and would never leave it behind carelessly. The police suspected that David intentionally left the ring as a message. Some of David's personal belongings remained in the truck, suggesting the thief hadn't traveled far. The entire office building was searched, except for one crucial place, the vault. Since the key was missing, Louis and the company management authorized a forced entry to open it using tools. However, opening the vault door required some time due to its high level of protection. At that moment, the company manager mentioned that there was a surveillance camera inside the vault, which could provide access to the recorded footage. They, along with the police, proceeded to the office. Upon entering, they discovered that the cabinet containing the VCR and videotapes was open, and the tapes had been taken. However, the manager informed them that the company had another security VCR for backup purposes. Adjacent to the original tape cabinet, there was a relatively hidden cabinet containing a backup VCR, which might still have some footage. Using a key, the manager opened the cabinet and found that the backup surveillance tapes were indeed functioning properly. He immediately retrieved the tapes for the police to review. A significant amount of cash went missing from the company's vault, causing immediate concern for the manager. Upon reviewing surveillance footage, it became apparent that David, who had recently been promoted to the position of vault supervisor, was seen loading the cash onto a handcart. This revelation came as a shock to everyone, as David had been considered a reliable employee. The discovery of his wedding ring left behind in the car raised suspicions of possible coercion. The vault was forcibly opened, revealing no signs of a struggle, suggesting that David may have planned the theft meticulously. It is believed that he utilized a missing armored van to transport the stolen cash. Holmes France Company primarily serves banks as its largest client base. A thorough investigation was launched to uncover the exact motives and circumstances surrounding David's actions. The company manager, baffled by this betrayal, was determined to bring clarity to the situation and ensure justice was served. The missing cash from the company's vault, amounting to $17.3 million, has become the focus of an FBI investigation due to its connection with banks and federal regulations. The cash, unmarked and with non-sequential serial numbers, has entered circulation, making it difficult to trace. To recover the money, the first step is locating David, the employee responsible for the theft. David's wife, Tammy, revealed that their family had been facing financial hardships and accumulating credit card debt. Despite her efforts to repay the debts, David's actions came as a shock. Investigators circulated David's photo at transportation hubs, urging the public to report any sightings. The challenge lies in finding where David hid the substantial sum of cash. The company's investigators are faced with the daunting task of searching for a needle in a haystack. The case highlights the need to uncover David's motives and determine if he acted alone or had accomplices. With the FBI leading the investigation, they aim to recover the stolen money and bring justice to the affected parties. 2 days later, investigators received a report from a local resident who accidentally discovered a Loomis Fargo armored truck while mowing the lawn. The location was 16 kilometers away from the Loomis Fargo Company warehouse. The investigators promptly arrived at the scene upon receiving this lead. Inside the armored truck, they found nearly $3.3 million in cash, several missing surveillance videotapes from Loomis Fargo Company, and the keys to the vault. Although the missing armored truck had been found, the suspect David and the remaining $14 million were still unaccounted for. $14 million is an enormous sum, and transporting or hiding such a large amount of cash would require time and effort. The investigators believed that it would be extremely difficult for David alone to move the money, suggesting that he likely had accomplices. Therefore, the FBI started investigating his personal relationships. The investigators discovered two contrasting views about David. Some considered him a dedicated worker and a good family man, while others believed his relationship with his wife was strained. "My wife manages the household finances, and David often feels dissatisfied because he can't buy things he likes," said one source. A Loomis Fargo employee disclosed that David used to spend time with a former colleague named Kaylee, even after work. The investigators located Kaylee and questioned her, but she initially denied any intimate relationship with David, stating they were just colleagues. However, her statement contradicted other employees' testimonies about their closeness. The investigators doubted the authenticity of her account and wanted to administer a polygraph test, but Kaylee refused. With no further leads, the case was closed, and information about David was gradually released on television in hopes of receiving useful tips. Loomis Fargo offered a reward of $500,000 for any valuable leads that could shed light on the situation. The investigators awaited the possibility of someone coming forward with crucial information. Shortly after, a tip led investigators to a man named Eric, who had been making extravagant purchases. They found that he had bought a motorcycle, a car, and frequently attended parties. Eric claimed to have inherited money, but it was determined that he was not David using an alias. However, there seemed to be a connection, as Eric worked at Reynolds, located near the site where the armored truck was found. During a heated argument, Stephen boasted about buying the bar for $400,000. Though his extravagant spending raised suspicions, it was unclear if it was related to the missing money. However, a bank's suspicious activity report revealed an important clue. Michelle, Stephen's wife, had deposited cash from Loomis Fargo marked packages. Investigators began surveilling Stephen's family and witnessed David's former colleague Kelly shopping with Michelle. They appeared close and shared laughter, raising suspicions of their involvement. Kelly drove a new car registered under Stephen's name, further linking them. The investigators now questioned their connection and how they planned and executed the heist. To unravel the mystery, they needed to trace back the events leading up to the incident. David, 29 years old, is a Gulf War veteran who repaired helicopters for the military during the war. He has no criminal record. He lives with his wife Tammy and works as a vault supervisor at Roman Justice and Company, specifically at the company's Charlotte office. At the company, David met his colleague Kelly, and they got along well, quickly developing a romantic relationship. Kelly left the company a few months later, but David continued to maintain a close relationship with her, unbeknownst to his wife Tammy. Despite reaching the position of vault supervisor, David is dissatisfied with his life. He feels tired of working in the office. He once mentioned that the money smelled bad, with a strong ink odor. If you spend 12 to 13 hours a day in any bank in Charlotte, you would find it to be a boring job. David works long hours every week, around 75 to 80 hours, but his salary is not high, only $8.15 per hour. He even feels like he doesn't have a real family life because he is always working. David spends very little time at home, and when he is at home, his wife tightly controls his expenses due to financial constraints, which adds to his pressure. He gradually develops the idea of wanting to escape his current life. In the Lumiere office, employees often joke about robbing the vault, but they only treat it as a joke. David, who handles countless cash every day at work, lives a tight life himself. Gradually, the idea starts to take hold in his mind, and he seriously considers the possibility of the joke. He shares his plan to rob the vault with his lover Kelly 2 months ago. She suggests involving a high school classmate named Stephen, who she claims is the perfect person to carry out the plan and can help David escape smoothly. Kelly estimates that if the robbery is successful, each of them can get $4 million. This way, Kelly and David can go anywhere in the world to live the life they desire. The person named Stephen is a drug dealer with a criminal record and has been arrested for check fraud in the past. Under Kelly's mediation, Stephen and David became acquainted. David described the plan to rob the vault to Stephen. David's plan began to take shape. One day, a month ago, he realized that he would need to work for at least another 30 years to pay off his debts. Determined to change his situation, he made up his mind to rob his own company's vault. David shared his determination with his lover Kelly and started preparing for the operation. He began observing the operations of the civil court and the company, realizing that the company's security measures were adequate but lacked sufficient personnel to guard every area. During shift changes, David would be the sole holder of all the keys. He knew that the best time to act would be at night. For David, taking cash from the vault wouldn't be difficult. With his access to the company's keys, he could easily withdraw money and call for the armored truck. However, once he disappeared from the company, it would naturally make him the prime suspect for investigators, making his escape extremely challenging. Furthermore, David started studying relevant information about the FBI's procedures for handling crimes, especially bank robberies. He discovered that such crimes typically start at the crime scene and then expand outward. David's plan involved evading the typical investigation procedures used by the FBI. They often start by searching transportation hubs, so David aimed to avoid being seen in those locations. He finalized the action plan with his accomplices. While David set up traps, Kelly and Stephen kept watch. Their goal was to regroup and escape together. Stephen arranged for assistants to transfer the cash from the armored truck to their van. After the operation, David planned to flee to Mexico with a portion of the money, while the rest would be taken to the United States. To cover his tracks, Stephen spent $50,000 on a fake identity for David. David, after leaving the company with the intern, returned to the office alone. He loaded packages of cash into an armored truck from the vault, taking an hour to pack almost a ton of money. Unaware of a hidden backup location, David failed to take the backup videotape during his rushed actions, making him a suspect. Eric, waiting in a rented van, was responsible for the rendezvous. David joined Kelly and Stephen, who were keeping watch, and together they drove the armored truck to Reynolds Company's parking lot. There, they planned to transfer the cash to the van. As arranged, David took $50,000 with him, the maximum amount for undeclared travel. Kelly and David then headed to the airport in a car. The stage was set for their next move, raising questions about their ultimate plan and destination. The task of transferring the cash was handled by Stephen and his recruited accomplices. Things had been going smoothly so far, but a small incident occurred. Stephen suddenly discovered that the rear door of the armored truck was locked. He went back to the driver's seat to search for the key, but realized that our key was among about 200 keys on a keychain, making it impossible to identify which one it was. Stephen attempted to pick up a stone to break the glass of the truck, but realized that the windows were made of sturdy bulletproof glass and couldn't be shattered. He had no choice but to try each key one by one. It took some time, but he eventually succeeded in opening the armored truck, Once inside, they found that most of the cash consisted of small denomination bills, totaling around $11 million, all in $20 bills. Their van couldn't accommodate all the cash. With no other option, they loaded as much money as possible, leaving $3.3 million in the armored truck. After arriving at the airport, David prepared to board the plane and leave. It was at that moment he suddenly realized that he had forgotten to book a ticket for himself. Upon reaching the airline counter, he was informed that there were no more flights to Mexico. David immediately called Steve. Steve told him that he could go to Atlanta, which was 300 kilometers away, and catch a flight to Mexico from there. David followed this plan and successfully boarded the airplane. With $50,000 in cash, he arrived at the southeastern Mexican resort of Cozumel. Steve and his accomplices returned home in the van. In the following months, Steve and his wife prepared to deposit the money into the bank. To avoid arousing suspicion from bank employees, they divided the money into smaller amounts and made multiple deposits over a period of 4 months. In total, they made 47 deposits, totaling $270,500. One time, Mia brought a large sum of cash to the bank and quietly asked the bank employee, "If I don't report it for taxes, how much can I deposit at most?" Due to her nervousness, she added, "Don't worry, it's not illegal gambling money." The bank employee found this conversation quite strange. Suspicious, the employee carefully examined the money and discovered that the bundles were wrapped in packaging from a French company called Loubier. Due to the notoriety of the case, the employee immediately became alert and filed a suspicious activity report. This report served as vital evidence linking Steve and Michelle to the case and was given to FBI investigators. Steve and Michelle decided to deposit some of the money in a bank, but they also approached relatives and friends, asking them to store cash in their safes or storage units for a fee. After 3 months, Steve asked a close friend to help transfer $2.5 million to a bank account in the Cayman Islands, offering a $150,000 reward. Steve was unsure about the money's origin and sought his uncle's guidance to avoid trouble. Concerned, they consulted a lawyer who advised them to report the situation to the FBI. The FBI valued this lead and equipped the friend with a $16,000 digital recorder to gather evidence by interacting with Steve. This ultimately helped investigators locate me. My lover, Carrie, purchased a Toyota sedan through installment payments. Our accomplice, Eric, who had taken a 3-week unplanned vacation, bought a Harley-Davidson motorcycle and a Chevrolet car. His wife quit her job as a receptionist. Due to the extravagant spending of our group, suspicions were raised by neighbors and friends, leading to reports made to the investigators. Meanwhile, the suspicious activity reports from the bank added to the suspicions surrounding Steve and his wife, Michelle. In Mexico, David also disregarded the agreed-upon expense control. He, too, lived a life of extravagance. David stayed in a luxurious hotel, enjoyed top-notch cuisine, participated in activities like diving and parasailing, and made numerous purchases. During a restaurant meal, a customer remarked that David looked like someone who had robbed $20 million. Although it unnerved him, he took measures like shaving off his beard to change his appearance and avoid attention. Before long, David had exhausted the $50,000 he had brought to Mexico, so he contacted Steve, requesting a remittance to meet his living expenses in Mexico. However, in the end, Steve only sent him $8,000 through the remittance. It was this phone call that became the crucial clue in locating David. When David called Steve for money, the cloud system intercepted the call and traced David's phone number, revealing his exact location. The FBI issued a reward notice about David on Tuesday. Steve mistakenly believed that only David was known to the FBI, not the rest of their group. Thinking that eliminating David would keep the others anonymous, Steve sent his bodyguard Mike to Mexico to kill him. Steve remembered to book a plane ticket for Mike this time. Surprisingly, when Mike arrived in Mexico, he didn't kill David, but instead became his friend. Upon learning of Steve's plan, investigators contacted Mexican authorities for help in capturing Steve. After midnight, in the coastal town of Playa del Carmen, Mexico, David was arrested. As he saw the police outside, he realized he was destined for imprisonment, but he also felt a moment of relief. The next day, my accomplices, Carrie, Steve, Michelle, Barry, and 7 others were arrested. During the search for Steve and Michelle's luxury mansion, a large amount of cash and jewelry, totaling over $11 million, was found. It took the FBI 2 full days to count the money using a money counting machine. 10 days after their arrest, These individuals were charged with theft and money laundering. Our relatives, friends, and Steve's personal lawyer were also charged with assisting in hiding the stolen money. The case involved a large number of people, with more than 20 defendants, 14 of whom were ultimately convicted. In this case, the 4 main suspects, including David, were sentenced to prison. David received a sentence of 7 years and 6 months. Steve received a sentence of 1 year and 3 months. Michelle received a sentence of 7 years and 8 months. And Kelly received a sentence of 5 years and 10 months. The daring individuals took unnecessary risks and exposed themselves due to their extravagant spending, becoming the subject of ridicule by the American public. Most of the stolen cash has been recovered, but over $2 million is still unaccounted for, as revealed by Jacobs. Furthermore, they were too direct in their spending and had no concept of hiding their actions. The case also inspired some films and TV shows, such as the 2016 comedy film Masterminds, based on the case. Dave himself was invited to serve as a consultant for the movie. After David's imprisonment, his wife Tammy divorced him. Currently, David has been released from prison and started a new life. He found a new job as a construction worker and remarried. However, the Lewisburg heist still affects my life, as the fines imposed on him remain unpaid, and he will spend the rest of his life repaying them. That's all. Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for the latest updates and notifications.